The moment where everything changed and this kind of sense of accounting isn't for me, I don't want to do this isn't the career for me, it changed when I started going into founder-owned businesses.
What I couldn't stand was tax returns being given to someone a day before it's due and being told you've got to pay 10, 20, 30 grand by tomorrow evening, and watching these business owners just fear and panic and not know where to turn. All of our clients and our business owners and the founders out there, they tell us everything, like stuff that they won't even tell their partners when they get home. But
this is like the most obvious use case where AI is going to disrupt and take all of the jobs, but it's just not true.
Hi, I'm Mark Costello, Chief Exec of Meshed. Meshed is a cutting-edge AI first digital insurance broker, and we are building software that integrates with accountancy platforms, which allows us to give customers better outcomes with their insurance. Today, I'm joined with two great guests from the accountancy world who I'll pass over to introduce themselves.
Shall I start?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Dave Sellick. So I run a practice called Sidgrove, which is based just south of London. Used to be in central London before COVID, then sort of moved back to working fully remote. I started my sort of career at PwC back in 2008, so the day that Lehman's crashed. That's how long ago it was. A few years as an auditor, then went into industry, where I've spent most of my career. So I guess since around 2013 onwards, I've been working with founder-owned businesses or fast-growing tech startups, smaller companies as a kind of FD, head of finance, and now I run a firm that effectively has looked to kind of take this kind of, I guess, new model, or in my own mind, a kind of new model whereby I'm looking to do what I was doing as a head of finance of one company to the scale at which almost most firms are doing their compliance services. So yeah, that's a kind of crazy thing to be able to, or just even think about how you could provide that level of service at that level of scale. Hence, I'm, I guess, also known for a lot of the crazy things I do with technology to enable that. Yeah, that's me.
how do you follow that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm David Adderson. I own a practice, or co-own a practice called Youtopia Limited now. We used to be Utopia Solutions, dropped the solutions. That's a long story and an interesting one as well. We actually bought it from a swingers, but
You what?
Yeah, so Utopia Limited used to be a swingers club in Cambridge or something. And we didn't realise until a few years into the practice, a few years into our name, and then as soon as they went under, we quickly bought it, and we've tried to disassociate. But you wouldn't believe how many links we get from dirtydave.com and other random websites.
Does it still happen?
Yeah. And we also get random inquiries as well, like, are you free Friday night? And we're like, no, like that's not us. So yeah, we're doing that. But back to who we are. So we are a small accountancy practice based in Milton Keynes. Small team of 5 now. Kind of heavily focused on small growing businesses that are under the audit threshold, because we don't want to deal with that. And I guess in a very similar way to Dave, we are focusing on finance director role and the finance manager role. So everything we're doing is taking the whole finance department, bringing it internal for us, and making sure that they have real-time data at any time.
Kind of part of this series, and we're going to speak to lots of people from different spaces, is that starting point of how you ended up in the industry that you're in. I done a degree and then had no idea what I was going to do and fell into insurance. And I'm sure probably about 3 months in, I was thinking, there's no way I'm doing this when I'm 35. Here I am, quite a bit beyond 35, still working in insurance and still loving it. What about you guys? How did you get started?
Oh, similar thing, to be honest, for me. So I went to uni in Nottingham and I studied geography, which, to be honest, I never really loved any subjects at school. I was good at them, but I never really loved anything in particular. So I always had an open mind, I think, after university and all the way through school, as to what I might do. I never really knew. And then I guess I was just a sucker for the marketing of the Big Four, to be honest, in retrospect, looking back. They're heavily targeted Nottingham, as they do a lot of sort of big universities. And I also was a sucker for like the Times 100 graduate sort of like table, of which PwC would be like the top, apparently the top graduate scheme in the country for like 9 years in a row or something. So yeah, that was kind of how I got into it. I just picked it and went, I want to go for that one, and it was really competitive, and I got it, and it was I was super happy to be honest until I rocked up there. So and that was a little bit of a different story, but yeah, I just kind of fell into it that way, and then got there and realised, hang on, I'm probably not a great fit for this. In short, didn't have a great time in my sort of few years at PwC, like a really bad time in my few years at PwC. Then considered a complete change. So, I was looking at things like music production. I was already DJing a lot at the time. I was looking at things like graphic design and retraining through courses like Shillington and things like this. And it was kind of like a final thought after all of those kind of thoughts to go, hang on, look, I've trained, I've qualified. My starting salary going back into a job after PwC would be, 45k versus 17k sort of thing to retrain. Let me just try and give this a go. Like, let me see if working in somewhere that I find more fun would kind of like, make me tolerate, maybe even love this job, potentially find something different. Went into advertising and then started to kind of enjoy a little bit more because I had a great culture. But I found that the moment where everything changed and this kind of sense of accounting isn't for me, I don't want to do this isn't the career for me, it changed when I started going into founder-owned businesses and I started working with technology like Xero and the whole cloud technology, I guess, evolution. Because it was that point when I was like being part of these businesses, sitting across from like these passionate founders, that I realised that it wasn't an industry that I wanted to run away from anymore. It was actually an industry where I realised I'm exactly the kind, because of all the things that I think don't make me good at this industry or make me appropriate for it or that make me want to run away from it. I think all those things are the things that founders and business owners really need from their accountant now. Like as I saw the compliance bits, the process bits all start to be more automated with using technology, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, I guess. I realised, hang on, this is the future of this profession is exactly is going to fall into the exact space that I operate. And from that moment onwards, I've just like had this absolute fire to want to be that kind of, I guess, different accountant and to push this whole like creative, empathetic, human agenda in accounting. And yeah, haven't looked back since then, really.
Very cool. David, what about you?
So I guess as a kid, I had no idea. It was complete GCSEs, and that was about all I could focus on at the time. And I think my mum said to me, "You're good at maths. Go into something with maths. Accountancy sounds good." Always got told you wouldn't fit in an accountancy practice. Like, you're not an accountant. Don't do it. Ended
Why
up.
do you think that was?
I mean, I completely get it, and I did go through that stage, but I ended up going to a couple of businesses and being the kind of finance junior, or however you want to call it. And one of them, I'll never forget, it was I don't think she should have hired me, if I'm honest. It was a shelving company, manufacturing, and they sold quite a lot to all the big brands, so like all the shelving and Tesco's and you name it, they do all that. But she brought me in, and they already had a finance team, and they were already running, so I'd complete work and get it back to her within sort of 5 or 10 minutes and be asking for the next thing. Mm-hmm. It got to a point where she was like, "Look, I need you to just leave me alone." So we started this project where I went and worked in every single department, so picking, packing, goods in, buying, out with the sales team, marketing, credit control, on the making payments, whatever you call it, at the time, and then helped her with the finance when the audit came in and the auditor was going through stuff. So I was really fortunate that I learned this system, which is called Chaos Control at the time. It was chaos, nobody used it properly, and it really frustrated me that they have software in place that wasn't being utilised, which it probably relates to almost everything I do now. But then I went to another couple of companies, worked kind of as the only finance person in still in industry. Then, for whatever reasons, applied for every job I could, moved to a practice and thought, it's more money than what I'm on, let's go for it, let's see what happens. Hated it. So what everyone had told me is, you won't like it, I wouldn't say I hated it. I absolutely loved working with clients, going out day to day, doing bookkeeping, talking to business owners, doing all that side of it. What I couldn't stand was tax returns being given to someone a day before it's due and being told you've got to pay 10, 20, 30 grand by tomorrow evening, and watching these business owners just fear and panic and not know where to turn. So that was one of the things that frustrated me, as well as working to the deadlines. Like the VAT returns, you technically have, 37 days to do it? Why wait 35 and then do it? Why not do it within the first 5 or 10? And so we kind of rethought the way everything's being done. How can we get this stuff in quicker? How can we do this better? Built this digital company and broke away from the practice I was at. It was quite a tough one, if I'm honest. So we decided in September, I just bought a house in the September, and decided after January we'll get through January, because every accountant is stressed in January. We'll get through January, and I'll leave. I'll go full time into the new business, and Catherine, my business partner, would stay and still earn her money that way. It got to October and she said, absolutely not. There's no way you're going and leaving me behind, and I'm carrying on working. So suddenly we've got 2 incomes. We've got all that coming in January, and I then get a football injury on the 31st of January, and I'm in bed for a month. So our first month of actually going self-employed couldn't have gone much worse. And then, so slowly built up from there and kind of thriving now.
Yeah, and when was that happened?
That was 2017.
Yeah, so I know that pain. I quit my high-paying corporate job to set up my last venture when my oldest daughter was 6 months old, and my wife was going, well, that seems like great timing, Mark. And then the pandemic struck 4 months later, so I get that. It's painful, right? And I suppose that's what drives you to work with startups. Knowing what that pain feels
as well. Like, how did you have that drive to be able to go beyond presumably what was quite a lot of anxiety, I imagine?
Yeah.
Or it's why people don't leave their jobs, right? Because it's never good timing. It's never good.
Yeah.
There's always something that's going on in your life that means it's not, it's not good timing.
Yeah, I mean, so, cards on the table. By the time, because we're an authorised business and you've got to get authorised by the FCA, by the time we got authorised from the FCA to start trading, it was another year and a bit later. And I think I was like, I was getting close to 6 figures on credit cards and going, right, when needs to get going.
Oh, so you were already
I was out. I'd left my job, and then we had put in the FCA application, I think at the end of December, early January. Then the lockdown happened in March.
Yeah.
And the world just shut down.
God.
But you just find a way to keep moving things forward.
It's
right?
funny, isn't it, how when you go, well, you're doing it, it's happening, how the mindset, you go through that anxiety. It's human. It's biologically we're wired to be anxious. It forces us into action most of the time.
Yeah.
Things go badly internally if we don't do something about it, whatever that is. But things do, you do adjust a lot of the time. As long as you're mindful, you're not complete. There's a level where it becomes delusion, and we might talk about that with founders.
Yeah.
But it's it's funny how these things you do adjust. Basically, your mindset does adjust.
You do, but that whole thing about founders, and you both deal with lots of them.
Yeah.
You've got to be delusional to do it.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
You do, because if you weren't to a point delusional, you just wouldn't do it. Nobody would do it.
If you look back, right, at these different scenarios, and you go, would I do that? I mean, it's a hard question to ask yourself, isn't it? Would I do that again, knowing what I know now?
Yeah. And I think it's dead easy to say from a personal, I want to do something different, better, and I want to drive better outcomes for people, and I think that I can make money doing that at the same time, then I would do it. But when you've got a 6-month-old baby and whatever, then... And it's the anxiety that you're not just placing on yourself, it's rippling through your whole family. Well, you've done it together, and the both of you are tethered to the same outcome, right? That must have been stressful.
I mean, she had family at the time, like she had kids and stuff like that, whereas I just bought a mortgage, just bought my first house. So, yeah, it was interesting. And
you're thinking, how am I going to remortgage this?
the problem is I I had nothing. I would stretched myself on the mortgage.
Oh,
I
okay,
just
so just the
got
payments,
it.
yeah.
It was just making them payments.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to my wife, like, you know, I'm gonna take out as much as I minimum as can. Essentially, it was £500, and that paid my half of the mortgage. And up until last month, I was under the impression that she was fully on board and she had no doubts at all. She told me actually last month that she had quite a few doubts and she didn't think I was going to make it, and she thought that, you know, there were loads of points when she was going to say to me, you need to just go and get a real job, go and do that.
It's mental, isn't it?
She never did.
But what did what was the thing that drove you to? I'm always interested. Obviously, I know what my drive was, but like what drove you to go and start it, even though, well, yeah, just for anyone to do it, I guess. But like, at what point did you go, this is the right time to go and do it? Particularly, sorry, after you've just had, you're buying a house. Like that is, it's not the most obvious time to go, right, yeah, let's do it now.
Let's quit my job, lose
Yeah.
all my money, and go for it. If I'm honest, I've always been that kid. Like, with my friends, we played GTA and all these games and stuff like that. I was the one that went and made money. Like, they would spend it, buy silly things, do stupid things on GTA, that sort of thing. I was always the one that they'd be like, oh, we need to do this for this mission, or we need to do that. So I'd always kind of be that the money guy in every game we played and things like that. So I always knew that, like, that was it. And I think even at 14, they said to me, like, one day you're going to run a business. And I was like, well, I don't know that. Like, and I always wanted to be a finance manager or a finance director. So not quite the CEO, but I wanted to be kind of the finance side of it and the finance guy. But what actually drove me at that point was just the opportunity was there. I could see things were happening. I could, my old practice owner, so there was actually three of us that started the business. My previous practice owner, he kind of said, look, start a digital brand, go and do it with my boss at the time, who's now my business partner. And we built it, got it all going, and he obviously had two practices. The problem is he was going, right, that one, I'll charge you 500 quid a month, and that one I'll charge you 515 for exactly the same services. So he was always pushing his own first. So in the end, I just said, look, we're going for it. Like, we need to do it. We need to go for it and just take the leap. I think my parents have always been self-employed as well, so they've got that, and I've learnt from them.
You've seen that all the time, yeah.
And I've seen the structure. My dad's a farmer, and my mum kind of did horse riding lessons and bits like that on the side, and kind of all of that, and basically got by.
Yeah.
So I've kind of seen working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all my life, and that's just normal.
Yeah, I live surrounded by dairy farmers. I'm not going to get into the farming conversation, but like, it is the most undervalued job in society by any stretch. Wild. It's not a job.
The problem is, on paper, it's worth a huge amount of money.
It's worth nothing.
But if you look at the actual cash in the bank and what they're living on and how their way of life is,
Yeah.
it's awful.
Yeah.
But they're happy.
Yeah. Some of them are. Yeah. Yeah. So on to that background piece. What drove you, Dave, to do it and set up your own thing, and what is like your anchor that keeps you going?
God, for a long time I didn't really know, to be honest. When I joined the first company I worked with as a number one in finance, so I came in as a number one in finance. That was quite a transformational thing for me. I'd got into industry, but I was still part of what I thought was actually a sort of small business at the time, like a sort of 60 million turnover outdoor advertising company, I think it was, if I remember right. Certainly a lot smaller than what I was auditing at the banks, when I was auditing banks. I'd come from there, but I was a management accountant. I was a cog in a sort of reasonably big finance department. So going and doing it myself was quite transformational, just because I had to evolve very, very, very quickly. And I kind of really enjoyed that whole process of rebuilding, being creative with the different software we were using, creative with the approach, and like that autonomy and that freedom. Of course, I also had, if things went badly, I also had the ownership and, the buck stopped with me in that regard. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. And I guess from that moment onwards, I felt quite driven to be as good at this, or very driven naturally to want to help those that were put in front of me. I felt the pain of a lot of founders that weren't getting good enough support on the accounting side. I invariably went from one job to another, seeing accounting firms in particular not supporting them right. I'd often come in at that time where they might be looking for a first hire, having worked with a firm or something, or maybe they were having a bad experience because of a firm. But either way, I had this kind of natural drive because I was kind of enjoying what I was doing and I was feeling the passion of those I was working with. I think maybe that speaks to a little bit of my sort of personality as an empath. It also speaks to the fact that I hated my job at PwC, and when I started to love it, I was like, I had this sense of, oh, this is amazing, and I had this drive to want to keep doing more of that. But I didn't necessarily know why I was so driven, really, not the real reason. And I went through this process of firing firms and kind of wanting to be better at my job and wanting to help people. And I think after I'd fired, it got up to around 10 firms after I went from one business to another. A kind of whole bunch of things sort of came together in terms of I was inspired by the work I was doing. So I wanted to go and do my own thing and do more of it and find a way to scale it in some way. Didn't really know what that was going to look like. I wanted to help more businesses, so that there was that side of it as well. As I said, I kind of loved helping people who were super passionate about what they were doing. And then there was a final bit, the thing that really made me just go and do it and start it, which was I just felt like the way that these small businesses were being supported, I felt like accounting was broken. And I felt like, again, I was delusional. I was like, I'm going to go and start something that hopefully I can use this project, this firm, whatever I wanted to call it at the time, to create a way for us to do better and to shout about it and to scale it in some way. And that's what drove me to start it. And then initially started out as okay, I'm going to do that by growing a big firm, I'm going to do it better and then grow it because I think I know better because I've worked with these founders, I know what they want, and I'm using this interesting technology. I just started playing with things like these Stream Deck devices and all sorts of different things, and that was the initial approach. And then about sort of 3-6 months in, I just thought, wow, this is incredibly hard to do at scale, and I came in all guns blazing, like, oh my god, everyone's crap and all these firms, they're terrible. And then I think within 6 months I had gained a lot of empathy for the challenges of the accounting practice world as well. And from that point onwards, I started to breach the kind of you're all crap and don't like any of you and what I'm doing is better and everyone should do it like this. And I kind of overcame that and started to build the network within the accounting industry. And I feel like I've achieved what I wanted to, which was in some way impart some sort of positive change in the space at scale. And I'm lucky enough to obviously get the opportunity to speak on stages and to be seen as to some degree influential, because I get that. I've had the opportunity to be on the stage, whether physically or metaphorically through the digital space, and so that's what keeps me going. The fire for me that keeps me going is that I know the potential we have to build a way of doing accounting, quite frankly work just period, but I think accounting is one of the most obvious examples of where I see people, it's got a stereotype, people finding the job boring, uninspiring, creative people, what, as if. It's got that stereotype more than any other industry. And I know that it can be amazing, as a job, inspiring, creative, visual, tactile, and you get to work with the coolest businesses at the most central, integral, part of that business. Every amazing movement, every amazing thing that happens in the world needs accounting at the backbone of it.
100%.
And when you find a way to do it in an inspiring way, a creative way, and that doesn't become the factor that dissuades people from doing it, you realize, well, what is dissuading people from doing it? And that's my mindset. I know it can be all those things. So having been someone that hated my job, I didn't really directly allude to it earlier, but I hated my job. I couldn't hate it more, to the point I was really unwell. You can get that much more unwell mentally, and to go from there and for my job to be the thing that was causing it, to cut again a long story short, to the job then inspiring me to have this fire in me every day to create something new, to help someone new, to progress what I'm working on, to progress who I'm, the things I'm working on for other people. All I've wanted to do is shout about it and tell other people how they can feel a little bit of that as well. And so, yeah, I get up, I want to help people, I want to create new things, but there's been this underlying element of like, how can I shout about this to everybody? Because everyone needs to know that it can feel like this.
Okay, I get that. I do get that. And that's similar to why I ended up where I was. I was sick of the industry, and that's why I quit my job where a 4-month-old baby, a 3-month-old baby in the house, and went, I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's tough. That's tough. But there's good comes out of that, right? Because if you've got to be happy, right?
Yeah.
And you've got to feel that you've tried at least, right?
Yeah.
And you've tried, both of you've tried and succeeded. And going from that being managed to managing people, that's hard, right? Like, being a manager in a business is not the same as being the owner in a business where all eyes just lead to you, right? That's a very different pressure. I'm lucky this time I've got 2 co-founders that we share that load, but it is tough.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. I've got a co-founder, and it's huge having somebody that you can go to and you can talk to and you can bounce your problems off. This is awful. What do we do? Do we get rid of them? Do we keep them? How do we do that? And she'll go, look, calm down. Let's breathe. Let's deal with it and do it that way. And vice versa. When she's all worked up and she comes to me and she's like, this isn't working. How do we do it? I can be that calming one.
Yeah.
So having that co-founder is huge. Like, running a business is a hugely lonely journey.
Yeah.
It's a very lonely place. And I think finance, like you were almost alluding to a minute ago, about you're in such a privileged position in finance. Everybody trusts you. You know everything inside out about the company. There's not much that you're not told because the numbers show you everything. There's nothing that can be hidden. So it's a very privileged position that we're in with all of our clients and our business owners and the founders out there, because they tell us everything, like stuff that they won't even tell their partners when they get home. Because if you're struggling financially, you're not going to go home to your wife and go, look, I've got no money at the moment, I'm not sure where it's coming from, because that would just cause absolute panic. And she'll go, right, you need to get a job, you need to do this, you need to do that. Whereas the accountant or the finance business partner, however you want to look at it, is like, I get phone calls all the time, like, how do I do this? How do I get through this part?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So when you've got to that stage as that trusted partner, what percentage wise roughly do you think the calls you get are actually accountancy questions, and what calls are just more going to help me out with this Sudoku challenge or whatever it is?
I'm sure Dave will agree. I'd say we're therapists as well.
Yeah.
And we take, especially during COVID, the amount of I don't know, guilt or like pressure, or I don't quite know what the word is, but that I felt from all of the clients that I was taking on, and I almost needed a therapist or my business partner that I would offload to, because it was just too much going on. So it was really tough.
Yeah
I laughed because it's how much time do we spend doing, talking when you go on a call with a client. Of course, there's lots that happens that we do for clients outside of being on a call with them or speaking to them, but most of it is just like, it's the kind of what you talk to about with your friends. Like, it's, of course, we are their accountants, but so much of it's about like building trust and building a relationship, and actually the accounting is so intertwined with how they feel and what's going on with their life as well. So it's always context that helps with that. I think it's also just like a very full-on subject to go straight into without having a normal conversation around it.
Yeah.
Like, if you want clients to speak to you as an accountant, and also as an accountant, if you want to be pumped for your job, like, it's good luck going straight into every conversation with like, right straight to the P&L.
Yeah.
It's just not like, it's got to be fun. It's got to be, and also there is context around it that 100% is, and as David alluded to, like, it's trust, it's all of those things. And if you want people to open up to you, you've got to build the trust and you've got to build the relationship. And, you know, maybe we'll talk about it in a bit, I don't know. But like, you know, one of the biggest things that I try to be an endorser of, and I think is controversial and is probably not a normal mentality around accounting, is that I think a lot of accountants will say be professional, or they'll say things like be friendly, don't be friends with your clients. Whereas I'm very much a big purveyor of build friendships, not client relationships. And I just think that is the highest value. That is the mentality that probably delivers the most value to my clients. I go out there, my friends.
I completely agree on that, and we are hugely like friends with all our clients. But we had a CCA come in, inspect, you know, the regulations. They come in, they give you an inspection, and one of the first questions they asked was, how do you stop yourself forming relationships with your clients?
What?
As in, like, personal relationship, as in, you know, I don't know, sexual relationships, or however you want to kind of word it. Like, and we were like, well, you know, we get on really well with them. We're pretty much friends with everyone. We like and we enjoy working with all of our clients. But the fact that that was a question from the regulators kind of threw me a lot.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're confused, but that's my opinion. I think this is the thing that happens a lot with
That's idiotic. It's not confused.
Yeah, it's out of touch with what businesses definitely need. And also, like, it's not an audit. What is the risk? The risk is that what you would sit more on their side. I mean, ultimately, we all sign off on values and ethics around doing the right thing and providing advice to our clients, regardless of the relation we have, which is in their interest and is legal. So what's the risk? I get we had this, in order, you have the familiarity risk, which is you get too close, that whole thing they're talking about, which means that it can cause a lack of independence when you're providing an impartial review on the accounts. It's literally your job is to be impartial, robotic, whatever you want to call it, in relation to how you're looking at those accounts. That is not your job as their accountant, who is not their auditor. You're on their team. You're there to look at in their best interest. Most of your job is strategic, and of course you've got a compliance exercise to do at the end of the year. But you're still. I mean, what are they implying? That if you get too close to a client, you might look to do something illegal because it's in their best interest, or it's not even that's not in their best interest. So it's disconnected from the difference between an audit and an accountant, or an auditor and the accountant, in my opinion. And I think it runs through a lot of accounting. I think it runs through a lot of firms. When I hear about how they do a year end or a management pack, or how they get information from clients, I'm like, you're operating like auditors, not accountants.
But most, like, I'm not saying all, but a lot of the bigger, more traditional firms have all been built by partners that have come out of Big Four, right? So that's why that culture then just goes down the way.
I think 100%, but I also think it's because this, I mean, it feels like it's not really a new phenomenon now, but like, there is a phenomenon of like small, fast-growing businesses that want to work very closely with their accountant in a way that is, to be vague, strategic, and that is in order to do that you need to build relationships. And so I think this whole new world of businesses that aren't audited wanting accountants who work with them strategically, which means you need to build a relationship, i.e. not accountants that just tick a box and do their year end. I think that's just a whole new world that to some degree, like the institutes that just don't know really or fully comprehend, firstly, that it exists and how to advise the people who like exist under the institute how to best work that. And in the context of how the industry is evolving, like every industry, no one knows the right answer necessarily. I give my opinion on how I think we do accounting best. The problem with the institute is when they say stuff, it's like we're mandate. It's like a sort of, this is what you should do, and I don't think anyone really knows what anyone should do in terms of best advising clients. I get there's compliance aspects, but there's confusion there between compliance and advising.
It's equally, like you say, it's advice. Like you're not forcing them to do anything. You're not telling them they have to do something. You're advising clients, and by having that relationship with your clients, you learn so much more. Like they're buying a car, they're wanting to do this, they've got a wedding coming up. Okay, great. Well, actually, if we think strategically, you've got a wedding coming up and you need some money for it. how we can make that work and how you can extract money out of your business a couple of years before, or if you've got a mortgage coming, like, you name it, all these things that if you are close with your clients, that's just normal. Like, I'm sure you know full well, like I do, like, you know, when they've got a mortgage coming up, when they're trying to change their house, when they're trying to buy that car, because you've already dealt with it and it's not even a big thing. Whereas, you know, if you didn't know and you're just doing compliance and you don't know anything about that client, they tell you, yep, got a wedding, it's next month, I need to pull 50 grand out of the business. Well, you're going to get hit by the tax man, and unfortunately you're stuck because it's too late.
It's an interesting thing, and I think sometimes it comes at it's a weird one, because it's sort of the mentality of the institutes where they might think hypothetically there's a risk there because you're getting too close to your clients. It's driven obviously from the mentality, maybe, or to be honest, probably the observations they've seen in bigger firms of people maybe have taken advantage of, or have been swayed by certain close relationships to do bad things. But what they're missing is, like, that's a cultural thing, that's not a familiarity thing. Like, if the culture's wrong in these big, you know, I talk about it a lot, you know, the bureaucratic cultures, the culture of fear, the robot culture, like, that's what drives people to do bad things, not because they get too close to their clients.
Yes, because they're scared to say anything.
That's a maybe, I guess, in the context of a culture being wrong or bad, inverted commas. Yes, is it a higher risk if they get close to the client? Probably, but we're missing the underlying point that it's fundamentally caused because of the bad culture. And then going back to this whole thing of don't get too close to your clients, you know, I always kind of like push back by saying, and a hypothetically I would say it to the institute, do you not think we should build trust with our clients? And like, yeah, I'm sure they would say, of course.
But just don't get too close to them.
Yeah. It's like, but
square that circle. Yeah,
exactly. How do you, right, as the catch-22, it's like, so you want us to build trust. Okay, fine. So you want us to build a trusted relationship. Then if you want us to build trust, okay, can you give me a good alternative definition of a trusted relationship in one word?
Yeah.
Friendship?
Yeah.
Like,
trust them, but don't send them Christmas cards.
Yeah.
So on to that trust thing, which I think is hugely important, and I think personal relationships are hugely important. And this is more of a view, and you guys know the industry better than me, right? But we're lucky enough to have two amazing software engineers inside our business, building out pathways using AI to make our jobs more efficient so that we can spend more time with our customers. That's all their objective is to do it much more efficiently. All of the stuff the customer doesn't need to see but actually happens on their behalf becomes much more faster and efficient. And I know how painfully slow that is to achieve. I get concerned in the accountancy world. I see a lot of vendors, not naming anybody, but selling silver bullets, and I think that there's going to be a lot of people spending a lot of money in AI software over the next few years that will end up in the bin. And I'm just wondering, without naming anybody, what your views on that are at the moment.
I'm relatively vocal, I think, on my social around AI. I'm a big user of AI-enabled technology and of LLMs. Well, I say plural, ChatGPT. My view is that it is, and I'm pretty vocal, and I talk about this a lot, is it's overhyped. I feel like that's an obvious thing to say, but I just want to make it very clear to people that I believe it's overhyped. And the reason why I say that is because I see a lot of, as you're suggesting, I see a lot of accountants very disillusioned at the moment because, they've just come out of various other hypes of cloud technology, and, you should all build dashboards, and you should, start dealing with crypto and blockchain, and you should, whatever else the new hype thing is in accounting, APIs, low-code, all of these. And AI is just the one that's really hit, and it just continues to hit. And it's this, it's not just okay, this is a hype thing. It's you need to get on board, otherwise you'll be irrelevant. The kind of words and the kind of rhetoric and everything that's being used is it's toxic because it's so dramatic. And so accountancy, disillusioned accountants who are already a little bit I don't really know what I should be using anymore. This industry's changing so fast. They're oh my God, what should I be doing with AI? I need to be doing loads of AI. Everyone's talking about it. And I just think there isn't a lot of really pragmatic uses of AI other than the AI that they're already using that's embedded into the technology, of AI in accounting day to day that they can really be using. And so I think there's a tendency for people to think they should be doing a lot more than they can. And my, I sort of joked a bit, but I wasn't. In my latest presentation I did at Digital Accountancy Show, I joke that I did a presentation within my presentation on AI, because I just said, here's my presentation on AI. Go and use ChatGPT, get the relevant level of, access, whether it's Teams or whatever, to make sure it's got the right security and all that. And be curious. And that's it. See you next year. Because I think that's where we are with accounting at the moment, other than the tools that already have AI embedded into it. Because I think that for me, I use it a lot, but my use case is like, and again, I know that there are certain use cases of AI that are, maybe in your instance, I think there are specific use cases that you've obviously seen that really help to deliver benefits in the context you're using it. In accounting, it's just, our use case is so varied and so complicated that I don't think, other than the tools having had it built in, there's only one use case or only 10 use cases or 20 use cases. I'm using it for everything. The way I'm using AI is like the way that I write words with a keyboard. I just think, like, be curious. Like, don't go to a session where someone tells you the words you can write with a keyboard. Just understand what a keyboard can do, or the AI can do, what it's capable of, and then be curious within your work at all points. So I think this idea that if you don't use AI, that you're going to fall behind, that's the problem I have. That overhype of, like, it's just that binary. And I don't think we're anywhere near that point yet where it has that dramatic an impact. And I think there are so many other tools that we currently have, if anything, that now have a renewed relevance via sort of tapping into something like ChatGPT. So using alongside the tools you already have, keeping curiosity is the main thing, and just still focusing on what's in front of you, which is your client and the problems they have, and working back from there and going, what tools can help with this? Can AI help with this? If the answer is no, move on. And most of the time it's going to be no. And I think, talking to your point about, vendors pushing it, it's optics at the moment, isn't it? We are in a bubble fact where every investor only wants to invest into, I'm exaggerating, I don't know the market, but it feels like investors only want to invest into AI enabled technology. And so there comes a certain point, well, from the start, quite frankly, now with startups, where they have to start shouting about optics with AI. And what we don't realize necessarily as users is that we think they're shouting about it because we should be using it, but a lot of the time they're shouting about it for optics for their investors and optics for the market, and we just need to know when to ignore it.
I completely agree. I'd say the reason that people are so worried about AI instead of like the cloud and stuff like that is because it's not just affecting our industry, because we're seeing it in every industry is talking about it. So cloud accounting affected us, and accountants were like, oh my god, yeah, but it didn't really stick that much because it's within our industry. Whereas AI, we're talking in marketing, we're talking in HR, legal, accountancy, every industry there is something it can do. Don't know how big it is, don't know how impressive it is, but there's a small snippet of everything there. And what I'd say is, accountants using AI isn't, as far as I'm aware, AI isn't quite there to produce a set of accounts. It's not there to replace us at the moment. But what we need to be looking at for AI, which is probably what Dave is actually saying he does it with, is all the business stuff. Creating content, creating images, looking at research. Obviously, don't just trust the AI and go with it, because we know it doesn't 100% factual, but dabble with it, play with it. I've started trying to push a team to use it, and my wife works in marketing, and she's like, I don't really know what any of that does, I don't want to touch it. And I'm like, oh my, you need to be aware of it. So I've actually keep pushing her. I mean, she asked me to come down this afternoon, have a look at a spreadsheet. How do I do this formula? Christ's sake, Gemini is built into that spreadsheet. Just ask it. It will do all of them things that you're asking other people to do, and basic things like that. That's where people need to dabble, and that's what I'm trying to push her to do. And it's things that are a podcast. actually you can rip it apart with AI. You can create snippets. You can do all these other things. So it's not necessarily, in my opinion, the accounting side of it. We don't need to replace the accounting bit. That will come. Software will produce something and it will be able to do that.
I think that's a long way off, though.
Absolutely.
Because ultimately, producing accounts, right, at the end of the month or the end of the year, you don't do it for the sake of doing it. You do it to give to somebody who doesn't know how to do it in a way that they understand it, can digest it, and then take comfort or panic or whatever emotion that set of accounts is going to produce, right? I still think we're a long, long way off of even the smallest business pressing a button, AI spitting out accounts, and them being comfortable with that. They want a person to tell them what that means.
The problem with it is, because I mean, the issue with AI and accounting is there's a huge number of people who don't do accounting day to day, or maybe they do and they do it badly, in my opinion, if they have this mindset, who look at accounting in the rule book, they look at the definition of it in some hypothetical dictionary, or based on what they know, or based even on their experience of working with a certain type of accountant they've worked with, and they go, well, it's all rules based. Like, it's pretty much like binary in terms of how you do accounting. It's process driven, it's rules based. You do the same thing over and over again, apply the same logic over and over again. This is like the most obvious use case where AI is going to disrupt and take all of the jobs, but it's just not true.
No.
None of that stuff is true.
No.
If you do it pragmatically on the front line, and we've just talked about the fact that like half our conversations, if not more, with clients, it's got nothing to do with accounting.
Yes.
But
if you get that software right, and it frees up 45-50% of your time, and you can have more of those conversations with your customers, that's when the software wins.
Yeah, of course. 100%, and we still already do that. Like, you know, this is the problem also with this mindset, is that like maybe people think that accountants aren't already leveraging huge amounts of technology to automate massive amounts of things that they're doing already. If we're doing it well, we already are doing that.
Yeah.
Huge amounts. I've got huge amounts of automation in my workflow, masses, and that's without using some sort of AI. And if I was to introduce AI to fill the gaps in between those automations, would it help things a little bit? Yeah, a little bit. Not that much. Like, you know, there is still huge complexity and nuance, and like I won't even go there because it's like a whole series of podcasts to talk about why accounting isn't just debits and credits.
Yeah.
Why accounting isn't just the rule book. But it's not. But it's hard people to I said this to somebody. I won't go there in terms of who. Well, I know it's someone who works in marketing and accounting, and has a kind of understandable kind of mindset towards, you know, what kind of things are helpful for accountancy firms to be thinking about. And I said none of that's actually like relevant or helpful. But I don't blame you for saying it, because it sounds perfect.
Yeah.
What you're saying sounds like it would help me if I thought like that, or if I used that tool in that way. But I'm like, I just would love you to come and sit in my office for a day and to see the pragmatic reality of my world.
Yeah.
It's not rules, it's complete, it's nuanced the whole time. It's actually all the rule stuff is taken care of already.
Yes.
If we've got automations and automated APIs and cloud technology and, you know, AI built into a lot of technology that's doing all the rule stuff already, you know, like, we're doing a lot of that stuff already. Yes, AI is going to help to level up a little bit more there, but most of us doing it well are you know, spending most of our time in the human bits, to be vague, and it's just like
you can't automate that.
Yeah, you can't automate it, but also, as I've said on one of my content before, I said until AI can read our brain, can read our clients' brains, can feel what they feel, can see what they see, can smell what they smell, like all these things, you know, some of the ways in which we have to evolve the way we work for our clients are built on tiny little things we see or hear or like feel in conversations, tiny little elements of what we see in the accounts or going through their bank, or like little updates they're giving us about things happening in their life or in their business, or like, and you need to be able to be digesting all of that information, how it makes you feel, how it makes the client feel, like all in real time, as well as all the data. And the only time we're going to get there is if we start having chips embedded into our head. And I think like that's the reality of like how ridiculous a scenario is that someone said you could automate accounting. If you've
Yeah, you
automated
can't.
accounting, you've basically extinct human beings.
You can't do it. It can't be done, right?
When you're talking about that, like the analogy of iRobot comes to mind. Like, you know, when Will Smith's in that car drowning, there's a kid that could be saved, and there's a 33%. Don't quote me on this. There's a 33% chance that kid will survive, but there's a 50% chance he will survive, and they saved him, not the kid. And he said any human would save the kid. Like, no matter what, your choice is to save that kid rather than him, even though the chances are lower. The robot doesn't do that. It works out on the best.
Yeah.
Well, now you're talking about building technology and how do we position AI for humanity? And I think this is a conversation I had recently, which was like, you know, there's sometimes from software vendors can be a tendency to position AI in a sense of, well, this will optimize the way we do X process, Y process. I'm like, but does it optimize for humanity? And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, you know, humanity's going to be fine. Like, when AI comes in and optimizes all these things, we're all just going to have all this free time. I'm like, no, we're not.
No.
You're just going to have, as a software vendor, you're going to be controlling everything. All these people are going to have, well, they're going to have free time. They're going to have no money. They're going to have no job. They're going to have no purpose. And we're just going to have a whole bunch of processes done in this robot way because we haven't built the way we operate as a society around put human first, put connection first. We've just got a whole bunch of things happening for us automatically around us with no human connection and a whole bunch of miserable people consuming a whole bunch of automatically created things or services.
Yeah.
And my point being that like the free market, you know, for me, I pushed my agenda hard because I realised that if we leave it to the free market and we don't push for certain agendas in the way that we position AI, then that's exactly what will happen. It will be optimised for what's best for output and finances, and the hypothetical economy without thinking is so important when we've got such a dangerous technology potentially to position the humans as the most powerful people in the mix of whatever drives it.
Yeah. I mean, going back to that vendor part, right? And specifically around accountancy. Now, I'm not an accountant, right? I've been dealing with a lot of accountants recently, but I look at a lot of those vendors and I go onto their website and I look at the founders and all that. None of them have ever been an accountant before, and they're saying they're building AI or software solutions. And by the way, most of what they're selling isn't truly AI, right? It's just RPA. But they're saying they're building solutions to make accountants' lives easier, and they've never done the job, so how do they know? And I think that a lot of accountants will be kind of gerrymandered in by all of that hype to thinking that they need to buy something that's AI. And again, it might well be that if you look at what they've built standalone, it works. But when you plug that into somebody's work processes that they've already built, it just doesn't work. So there was a big software solution in insurance about 10 years ago that came out called Broker Briefcase, and it was an amazing piece of technology standalone, but when you tried to plug it into how people done their jobs, it just didn't work. And I think that's where a lot of this hype bubble will go with a lot of the vendors that are out there trying to push stuff that I'm guessing you guys look at it and go, alright, that might be, as you just said, make me fractionally better at that one process part of my business, but I'm willing to rip up all of the processes I've already built, put this in, take that risk, and then spend all of that time retraining myself on something that I'm only making a small marginal gain at. Well, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, I had a firm quite recently ask me to come and present to their partners day about AI. And I was like, why? It's like, oh, well, I know that you're very good with technology and stuff, and I just want you to come and talk about. I'm sure you have some very strong views about how we could use AI in our firm. And I just thought, I can sort of, but why don't you want me to come and talk about how you can better leverage Power Query or I don't know, Google Apps Script or Open APIs or some of the stuff I'm doing with workflow, or using better how you can build a better communication with your clients, like what I've done to make me feel more inspired by the work that I do, what you can do within Excel, or like any of the other tools, quite frankly, that bring much more benefit to me and the value my clients get from me than AI. But I did talk about this recently. But the AI stuff is a bit like nuanced, because firstly it's intertwined into everything, kind of. Or like a lot of the apps we're already use AI, and did before this bubble started with LLMs. Basically, ChatGPT kind of drove this whole thing of like, oh, AI is a thing. It's like, well, it has been for ages. Yeah, you're talking about generative AI now because it's very impressive what it does. It's been a thing for a long time, but generative AI is, yes, it is a tool that helps us. But I think what I am encouraging people to do with the kind of sense of hyping AI, I'm happy to overhype AI's role in establishing the relevance of the technology that's already being created. Yes. And that's what I've been talking about a little bit more recently, which is now with LLMs, AI, if you want to overhype it, I'll hype, I'm happy to hype, like, yes, go and use your AI now, your LLM, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever it is, to start playing around with tools like Excel, G Sheets, open APIs, like how you can build workflows in Slack, how you can use tools like Make and Zapier and things like this to build things perhaps you didn't have the capabilities to do before. Start going back to those tools because they're incredible. And don't just lead with what can I do with ChatGPT alone on its own right in its own individual silo. Think about how could I better use other tools as well. But again, all of this stuff comes back to as well, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Like, what's the best tool to solve that job? And okay, how can you use it better? And how can you use it better? And ChatGPT might be the tool that can solve it, or it might be the thing that enables you to use the tool better, that is a better thing to solve it.
So one final question on technology then. What's the one, menial's not the right word, what's the one time-consuming task, the biggest time-consuming task for accountants that you'd love to be able to solve?
I mean, I'd say the biggest problem we have in our practice is getting hold of the information. We do a lot of work training our clients, getting them to give us the information as quick as they can and all of that, but it's getting hold of every receipt, getting hold of every, not that we do, but if we could have all of that data instantly coming in, which that would be my go-to.
It's always the same. I say the same thing, to be honest, is the answer I give. It's most, for me, I'm like sitting here thinking for other things to say, because it's the instinctive answer for me is the same as that. It's always the same. It's like my brain will immediately, when you ask the question, it's like immediately it's like getting stuff from my clients, right? So getting information from them. How do I get them to give it to me quicker, better, higher quality, more information, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so that's the answer every accountant ever that I've ever spoken to gives. AI can't solve for that, because that's human behaviours that you're talking about, right?
Well, I think it potentially is possible. I think the banks need to do it. I think there was a software called, was it Flux or something, that tried to do it really badly, got bought out by Barclays and didn't go anywhere. I think I actually tried to download it and it worked for KFC and Subway or something ridiculous. So it wasn't relevant.
Yeah.
But essentially, what you need is something that, at the point of sale, the receipt gets transferred to that bank or that card, and that's when the data is captured. If you can master that, I think that answers it all, because then we have direct access to it.
Can HMRC not solve for this problem then, by just accepting the electronic record of the transaction on a card as a receipt?
Yeah, but I mean, where does it? But you're 100% they can, but you are now talking about compliance.
Yeah.
Right. When we do like year-end accounts, we have specific boxes that underlying the data we put in, obviously, are mapped to an HMRC, and Companies House get that data in this sort of structured format. But when you're providing insight to clients, that's not how you work. You look at. I mean, I talk a lot about like you've got to tell a story and numbers and help people to like that set of financials should tell the same story they're telling me about what happened in their business in financial terms. And that might not be how, and the way I tell that story, or the way that particular client, and that changes client to client, understands or want to read that story in a way that's helpful for them and their business, definitely won't align with how HMRC or Companies House or whoever's regulating the thing wants to understand information. So my view is that you might get to that point, but I still think even if we got to that point, you'll then have a subset of accountants which go, great, good one for compliance, we're not doing that day to day, and so the same problem happens, which you still need to intervene and basically put in your own form of coding. My point is that it's, you know, in order to do that, you've almost got to take the soul out of businesses and make them all think the same way about how they see insight and read insight.
Yeah.
And that's taking, and a lot of that's driven by individual personalities that exist in those different businesses. So you're kind of sucking the soul out of the accounting by doing that. So I think it's difficult, but I think I understand where it comes from, in the mindset of potentially being able to do it. But I think that it's unlikely, but I think we can get closer and closer and closer. You know, and that's obviously what we see technology trying to do now with sort of the AI kind of enabled methods of looking at receipts and data and benchmarking across similar clients and databases. So we can improve things, but that process of actually getting information from clients, I think, is always going to be a problem. It's hence why, you know, I'm someone who talks a lot about how I work with things like Slack, to kind of really dial in the communication with the clients.
Slack's a lovely tool for that. It really is.
Yeah, I mean that would, you know, that's been a long process for me to kind of really work out how do I bring that into my practice in the way that clients will use it, because I know if clients will use it in the most, you know, in a way that I kind of anticipate, so I want them to use it, and the way that really utilizes a lot of the functionality that Slack has, then you could have this beautiful workflow. But it's it's been the last 2-3 years trying to work out how I do that. And it has been revolutionary for that whole side of the fluid conversation. But we're way off. We're talking now about, you know, firms that, you know, me and David, like, you know, we this is in the context of many firms that are still working with paper with their clients.
Oh yeah, I get that. I do get that.
So you've got this situation where we're talking about, AI is going to get rid of accountants and get rid of like all of the difficulties around communication. It's going to get rid of, you know, everything's going to be automated, and then, you know, go and use AI. So you've got these people working with like paper with their clients, going hypothetically rocking up at AI conferences and going, all we need to do is slap AI onto this and then it will solve it. And it's like,
it doesn't work.
It's just, I can't think of the analogy, but I think someone came up with it on LinkedIn. They were talking about, you know, it's almost like getting a really old Skoda and slapping like a Ferrari wing on the back or something.
And seeing what happens. Yeah, look, I get that, and I think that is my concern, that there's a lot of vendors, and I don't think that most of them are nefarious or anything. I just think that they've built something that, in the cold light of a schematic drawing, looks like it just makes total sense. They then get some really hyped up good marketing behind it. Before you know it, loads of people have bought the software, and then when it hits the cold light of day, it just tips over. Yeah.
I mean, I know we're being sceptical, but I mean, it's there's a lot of good AI technology out there.
Yeah, there is.
I think it's just my view would be it's just the overhyping, and I think that's obvious. I'm just outlining the dangers for accountants who, you know, I have accountants reach out to me reasonably regularly who are saying what I've just said here, like around being disillusioned with all this kind of stuff, needing to reposition themselves, needing to work out how they leverage AI better. And it's part of the reason for, maybe mentioned briefly, like the project that I'm putting out there, which is to lift the bonnet on everything I've ever created and to look to create the foundation where I'll be sharing that like on a real-time basis going forward. Because I get it, I'm a data point of one, but it's like I think I'm okay to say that I work at pretty much like the cutting edge, because I've worked hard to be in a position to be able to say that, because I've, you know, done a lot to try and prove that and show that, and I want people to realise like what's actually happening behind the scenes of a practice where literally I spend way too much of my time like being curious about pushing the, you know, the boundaries of every technology of AI, and, you know, at the expense of often the people around me and my own health sometimes. So, you know, come and look at what I'm doing, and if I'm not doing what you perceive you should be doing, then don't worry, you're all right, like, because you shouldn't even be doing what I'm doing, kind of thing, you know, or certainly don't need to be. And I think one of the reasons I'm sort of bringing that up is because I think when I show that to people, I actually think it'll put a lot of them at ease, because they'll realise that I'm using a lot of the tools that they already go.
They've already got.
I've already got it, and I already know kind of how to use that. And like you're sort of taking it to another step, but you're not doing a lot more. And like I know.
I think that I almost think that that's a big, huge problem with technology. Is businesses buy it and they use the first 2 or 3 features and then they don't ever go any deeper with it, right? And they then end up buying tools and they've already got that tool in house.
Yeah, it's a bit like I tried to make music on the side and stuff. It's a bit like any of these professional softwares like Ableton or Logic or like you go onto it and you sort of like it very, very quickly evolves into this thing where I need this particular like synthesizer or I need this sound or this pack of loops or these things, and then you sort of like log onto YouTube and you just you'll see videos of people just like using the stock stuff, producing like basically a top 10 hit with it.
Yeah.
And you realise it's like, oh yeah, okay, so yeah, I don't need any of those things. Like I just need to put in the time to like curate my skill or maybe fast track that, a bit like what I'm sort of trying to do with Circle. Listen to those who've done it, fast track the basic skill set. Firstly, realise and have the awareness to know it's possible.
Yeah.
To do this without spending thousands on all these different synthesizers. And it's not that people don't buy them, but you don't need that to get the sound. You don't need that to get in accounting to get the output that's really high value that clients will pay for, that like is kind of literally ticking most of the boxes. So it's to raise the awareness that you can do that, and then to fast track them to the point where they're competent to that level to some degree, and then put your own spin on it. So same in music, is like you can see how someone's doing it, copy it, learn the skill set. Okay, cool. Now I've got to put my own spin on it. Whereas what we kind of end up is a bit like, to use the analogy of music, people buying all these plugins and loop packet packs and all these things, and then they just throw it out and it goes, that sounds great. Yeah, but it sounds like every other tune that's out there.
Yes.
And so it's not really adding any unique value that someone wants to either pay to come see you or to like buy that record over something else. You've got to do something that provides some unique value to the people you're providing it to, in a way that makes them connect with it. In the same way as accounting, you've got to do something that, if you want to really do the high value stuff that really connects with people, that really gives them something that they value, you've got to curate in a way that connects with them in a way that's uniquely valuable to them. And that requires, in our context, or certainly I think so, flexibility in the tools. So you need that underlying skill set to be able to tailor and curate it in a way that is specific to that client, from a baseline of like, this works. So like, again, like music, this is a baseline that works for most tracks, but then having the skill set and the awareness to be able to move with it and to kind of see what's in front of you, or have a vision for what you want to create based on what's in front of you, and flex it. And I think this is something we're up against a little bit in accounting, where I talk about basic tools like using spreadsheets better and APIs and Power Queries and Excel and Google app scripts and stuff like this, and Make. And the issue is that people often come back to me and they say, well, if we're going to learn those tools, we're going to, or that's a friction because we've got to learn those extra skill sets. Like if you're telling us that we've got to like build in these tools and learn these skills, then that's not as simple as just buying an app and pressing a button. And I always, in that scenario, say, well, let's fast track this. Okay, fine. Right now, you're buying a load of apps and arguably doing just as good a job. They don't, which is my bigger point actually in this instance. But let's now fast track that forward X number of years. Keep buying apps, we keep pushing buttons, we keep buying apps, keep pushing buttons. Guess what happens at some point in time? Everyone realizes that all your job now is button pushing. And then once they realize that all your job now has come to is button pushing, and they realize that they also have a finger they can push a button with too, they're going to realize that the whole profession has devalued itself to button pushing. And guess what? This whole mentality that accountants are paid well overnight will basically like dissolve into, you are button pushers that don't deserve to get paid more than button pushers. If you want to keep reasserting your value in your profession, you need to keep evolving your skill set. And so yes, some of the stuff I'm teaching you is hard. I'm fast tracking you. Some of it is hard. Yes, you're going to have to use your brain, which I can't get my head around why people have a problem with that anyway. Accountants are really intelligent people who've passed all these hard technical exams. All of a sudden I put like, a formula in front of them that they don't understand, and they go like, oh my god, if we implement this into our firm, what happens if it breaks? I'm like, you teach people how it was built, and then if it breaks, they know how to fix it. And they're like, but we could just get an app and it just automates it.
And then,
it's this whole thing.
Yeah.
Just going back on their apps, like what I think I've started to learn is whether you use Xero, QuickBooks, Sage, you name it, all the different softwares, you can have a look on any of the different accountancy pages. They've got thousands of different softwares out there. The clients don't care. They don't care what you use. They don't care what you do. What they actually want is you to tell that story. They want you to explain to them what the data is telling them, what the finances are telling them. So what I've almost learned is that actually all these different softwares are tools, and as long as you're using them in an efficient way and you're doing it properly, it doesn't really matter which tool you use to produce the numbers that you're going to tell the story with. It's about telling that story and making sure that the clients or the customers know what they're looking at, understand what they're looking at, and can go and make business decisions. How you get there, I don't think really, and like you say, it's button pushing, and it keeps spiraling. There will be a point that you click a button and you can produce the accounts. That's great. Most small business owners don't have a clue what that means, or can't read a P&L, don't understand what they're looking at. So we've got to be them storytellers that are doing that.
And if you've just pressed the buttons to get there, you don't know the story yourself, right?
No. I mean, and that was obviously one of the points I made, but also like probably the bigger issue is that we all know that the button pushing type technology, whether it be accounting, whether it be content creation, whether it be graphic design, is average at best.
Yeah, it's pound shop versions of the real deal.
And again, I was having a discussion the other day with someone, again, same person, marketing and accounting world, saying that, well, if you do that, it looks good, but it doesn't create alignment in terms of the brand. It doesn't pick up on those kind of nuances. Like, it just, again, you get average output as well. But use any software as long as it's not QBO or Sage, right?
Well, I've heard people talking about the latest version of Sage and saying good stuff about it.
Yeah, well, I'm open for that. I mean, to be honest, I think, jokes aside, like, I would
QBL,
say just QBO, totally, I mean, I've always just been, I think we're both mainly fully Xero
only,
but only because I think it's the best tool in the market. But if someone does legitimately say, well, Sage is up there now, I would take a look. It's about using the right tools. What I don't necessarily get on board with is this idea that people say, well, we use all of them because some clients like to use this one more than others.
I don't get that at all.
And I'm just like, but the issue with that, this talks to a much more underlying issue that I have, which is, and I had this conversation with someone around, but the value is in the eye of the beholder, or whatever the saying is, right? So if the client wants this, then, well, who am I to say like they shouldn't have it? I'm like, but this isn't like a normal business, like, going to a restaurant and choosing a meal. Like, people don't understand what they're consuming.
Yes, it's not the steak over the fish, right? It's not.
Well, you know how they taste. Yeah, most people know enough about nutrition to know what they're getting themselves into, what it tastes like. Like, accounting is like another profession, like being a doctor or something, or like, we don't know when we get go into hospital bed. Like, again, I use this analogy of like, go into hospital, you have an injury, whatever, you have an operation, and they give you some morphine. When you wake up, you got some pain, you go, can I have some more? That was great. And they just give you some more, and you go, well, that was really great, can I have some more again? Like, and actually keep it coming. Oh wait, dead. Because you need the doctor to step in. And even though it might feel good, you might think it's good. You don't know, because you have no idea.
You have no context.
The impact of the consequences of choosing a particular thing you're putting into your body, or how you're treating yourself medically, no matter how it feels to you at that point. And I think the same. I have strong views around this in accounting. Like, I can't think of any business owner I've ever met who is in a position of knowledge to be able to make a call as to whether Sage, QBO, or Xero is best for them, unless they have some specific nuance in their business, in which case they might know, but indirectly by communicating back to me, I need this type of functionality. But it should still be, in my opinion, us to be the ones in the informed position to make that call. That's I don't know how you feel.
I kind of agree. I've never found anyone that can't switch. You know, I've managed to switch Sage, QBO, Free Agent, you name it, like to Xero. We might do a slight workaround. We might change the processes, but we're changing that anyway. We're ripping it all apart and we're going back. If a client is doing everything on the software, then fine, they can use what they want. But the reality is they're not. It always comes back to us. And in my opinion, by us being Xero only and focusing heavily on Xero, I know it inside out. If a client phones me now, I can talk them through every single bit they need to do.
Without even looking at it?
Without looking at it. I can be sat here now and I can tell them where to go to get the report that they need. Don't get me started with that. I started to get used to it, which is really bad because then I go back to the old one and I'm lost. But I can tell them where to go, what to do, how to do it without even looking. And then if they say that there's a problem, I'm like, okay, what's on your screen? This. Okay, I know where you are. And I can visualise it all in my head. So I can get them...
Can't do that if you're working with six.
Well, if I'm working with all the different softwares, I can't be an expert.
Yeah.
I can be average.
Yeah. What do you think of... Where's your views at with like things like Free Agent now? Obviously, you mentioned Xero, they're increasing their prices again. Is that not... Because I haven't looked at Free Agent. Does that sit in the same category as QBO and Sage for like small, medium-sized businesses?
I'm slightly annoyed because I do actually quite like Free Agent. I think it does quite well. We've got one person that's using Free Agent because that's what they've always done, and that's essentially it's free because of how they've done it.
It's an RBS thing,
which is slightly annoying. But again, we work very differently with them as a sole trader, and I just help them out as a friend rather than an accountant. But yeah, I think it's okay. As I say, as long as they're doing it all, they're happy with it. It doesn't really matter what they use. Again, it's a tool to give them the information to produce a tax return at the end of the year if that's what they want to do. So all the softwares will do that to a degree. That's fine. If they want to work with me and they want me to be that strategic, that finance manager, that finance director, I get on really well with Xero. I can rip it apart. I can quickly, efficiently make them all of the reporting that they want. So that's why we go with it.
But that's what I mean, though. They've chosen to come to you and say, I want to work with you. At that point, it's like they're paying for you to provide the most optimized service. And then I've got, accountants using what I don't know, understand it, like this mentality of like, but at that point still, okay, I'll work with you. Which software would you like me to use? So you can have me at 50% optimization, you can have me at 80%, or I could be fully optimized at 100%. Which one would you like? Well, 50%.
Going back to your analogy, that's like going to the doctors and saying, well, can I have that drug? I mean, I don't have a clue which drug I should be having. I don't know which surgery I should be having. I fully trust him to tell me what I need to do. Like, prime example, actually, I've just been to the dentist. Like, I go to the dentist, he tells me what I need, I accept it.
You've got to have the trust. That's the thing with and that's where I think it's different, where we definitely have had this movement more, and it does come a little bit from the US side as well. We get some of those influences creeping into the UK, and I have my issues with that. But like this mentality that we run businesses, and we do, but they're not normal businesses.
No.
And it's like, you need to run a business and you need to run a profitable firm, and of course, but we're not normal businesses. We are in a trusted position where we have the opportunity, or I don't know, that's not the right word, or there is the responsibility not to exploit customers who don't know what they're buying.
Yeah.
And I've seen some of this more and more with this debate where I crop up on LinkedIn whenever I see something and I feel passionate about the messaging not being good, or I have a very strong contradictory opinion, I put it out and I articulate it. And this is one of the areas where I'm like, no, we should not be doing things that we know don't really drive a lot of value or take as long to do, because ultimately they're not driving a lot of value. There's optics when the client thinks that that's driving value, and then we're charging disproportionately for it, because we're basically, by doing that, exploiting the fact that they don't know any better, that they don't know. You've got it, and I think that there is somewhat of a fine line there, but if we're doing things that exploit this idea that the client doesn't really know what we're doing. By the way, accountants have been doing that forever. So I often refer to like the year-end process as like, oh well, you send it off, they do some voodoo, and then they send it back. For a long time as an internal accountant, That's what I thought happened. Is like, they do some voodoo, I'll pay handsomely for it because I have no idea what they do. When I worked it out, I was like, oh geez, they're ripping us off. Like,
yeah.
I've actually been called out on that. So what we do is a huge part. I try and teach the client how to do everything that I'm doing. They understand or the P&L, they understand it. They understand what they're looking at. And accountants have said to me, like, but why would you do that? Because then, that's what we're charging for. We're doing it all. And if they know how to do it, they'll do it themselves. Well, you can go on YouTube. You can learn how to fix a car. But there's no way I'm going to sit out there and fix my own car.
No.
Accountants have called you out on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no shit.
Because that's what they're charging for, and they're hiding behind it.
Well, so I've had the same in our sector because we're completely transparent about commission levels, and I've had people saying, you're just trying to kill everybody's job, and you're like, really? I mean, maybe that's the way you see it. It's not how I see it, but if that's the way you see it, then...
Well, without putting words into your mouth, you're trying to elevate the standards.
Yeah.
For me, it's...
Because we can take tech and make it more efficient, but as I say, it's not a silver bullet, $499 a month, and then it's all sorted, right? It doesn't work like that. Anybody that's selling you that we can deliver X amount of efficiencies by paying Y for a product are not being... I'm not saying they're being disingenuous, they're being bovinely optimistic. So you can read it any way that you want.
And I think all of that kind of comes back to, I guess, for me, the kind of summary of the AI situation, which is, regardless of where it's at right now, and whether it's AI-enabled technology or just technology full stop, all roads do lead to all of the automated stuff, all of the kind of rules-based stuff, all of the logic, the stuff that can be automated, process-driven stuff being fully automated. Everything you conceivably think could be automated will eventually be automated, and right now it's not doing it perfectly, but it will eventually. That's where the end goal will be.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm always pushing this agenda of like, regardless whether we're not there yet, we will be there. Okay, so we already need to start thinking about, as accountants or anyone service-based, where do we sit as humans long-term here? And so let's start putting in the work now to focus on the areas where we can't be replaced.
Yeah.
And that is basically the same question as, what do humans do that technology can never do? Well, it can never actually biologically be a human, firstly. Okay, so let's double down on the traits of humans that people really value, and that is connection and trust and empathy-driven connection and creativity and all the sort of traits that the humans uniquely have. It's usually creativity and connection, and it's empathy-driven versions of those things. And then it's just the fact of like, we are human. People want to connect with humans. A bit like if you go to a festival and you rock up and they go, don't worry, like Prodigy aren't going to play at Glastonbury anymore, but don't worry, the set you're going to hear is going to sound identical. In fact, it's actually going to be enhanced with AI to sound even better. The light show is going to be better. Actually, every single bit of it is going to be enhanced and better for you guys. But there's going to be no humans running around on the stage. Do you think anyone would pick that?
No,
because because people are biologically wired to feel good, and this will never change until the biology of humans evolves out of them to want to literally see someone, feel someone, connect with a real human. And that doesn't have to be in real life. That can be to just know that on the other end of that email, on the other end of that message, it evokes something in us. And as soon as and someone might say, but what if we could make it identical to the point someone wouldn't realise? Well, when they do realise, and all you've got to do is have a slight slip up. It could just be like this, a slightly elongated dash in the words, someone to realise. All the trust you've then built up to that point will be gone. Because you're saying, well, it doesn't matter if it's identical. Well, no, it does. Someone needs to believe that it's a human on the other side because it's the way someone feels. It's biological, it's wired. It's like, well, what if we could just replicate that? Well, you'll slip up somewhere. And even if you don't slip up, if that word gets out, people will lose trust in your brand and then they'll boycott it. And so I guess I'm coming back to like just saying that it's why I get annoyed when people basically start putting out narratives around the extinction of these professions and that professions and how everything's going to be automated and I'm just like, fine, okay, that's cool. We know that. That's already where all roads lead. We know that. Can we have the conversation about how humans elevate themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think in summary to what you're saying is, if you don't automate the automatable bits, you're going to get squeezed. If you try and automate everything, it won't work.
Yeah, so that's the problem.
And you need to automate the automatable bits and double down on being good at your job. And that might mean you can deal with double the amount of customers because you've automated so much stuff, right?
Yeah,
which is where a lot of the good practices are already at, right? So
yeah, because I think if you take the mindset of like, I mean, I say focus on connection and build relationships, and I'm like, good luck doing that and not automating the things that can be automated.
Yeah,
because you won't have any time to build. So,
No, you
so actually, by saying that, I know that I'm also saying you've got to use automation, because I know I can't build relationships until I've automated out the bit that puts me into the robot mindset, which is the manual, repetitive stuff.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like a bit of a, yeah, I'm not telling you to automate. Oh, but shouldn't we be focused on? Yeah. But it's all intertwined. I'm telling you to humanize what you do. Humanize can also mean using technology.
Absolutely. I think that's exactly what tech is doing. It's taking the robot out of the human. It's not that the robot's replacing the human.
It's what I say to people. So I have on my desk, hundreds of 30 of these Stream Deck pads. So my desk looks like a NASA spaceship, like operating center or whatever. That's not a thing, but that idea is just
kind of does look like that.
Yeah. But people obviously will look at it.
Missing with Spock behind you. Yeah.
I know. Actually, that's a good point. Maybe I should get
a Spock
cardboard. Yeah. But I do that. I mean, obviously, I do what I do because that's what gives me joy. And everyone should do their version of that in their own way. So I would never say go and do this, but it gives me joy. But the reason why it's so effective for me, and contrary to like some people's initial reaction, which is like, oh my god, it's so overwhelming and so techie, and like I'm like, well, actually for me, it is the thing that prevents me from overwhelm, because all those things you see on my desk, those are robots that I've delegated repetitive work to
each
and
customer.
Responsibilities and interfaces they're in my head too. So when I get back onto my laptop, like I was in America for a month, and on my laptop I felt this kind of deep sense of stress as I was navigating all these menus and workflows repetitively, because I couldn't delegate them anymore to these things on my desk.
Cool. Well, finally, to wrap up, I've got 3 questions for both of you. Something that you're currently watching that's interesting, something you're listening to, and something you're reading.
Oh god.
Well, I'm not very good at reading, but I literally did just get sent The Psychology of Money, which I've been listening to. So, not quite, but I'm going to put that in the reading box.
Yeah.
Something I'm listening to. So, I guess I follow quite a few podcasts. I love learning from podcasts. I'm not very good with music, so don't tell Dave this, but I don't listen to any music at all. I'm not really into, like, I do to a degree, but I'm big on the podcast. So, and I don't want to say it, but probably the main one I go to at the moment is the Stephen Bartlett one, which some episodes are great, some aren't, and I'll leave that at that. And then what the other question was, what am I watching?
Something you're watching.
To be honest, I don't really watch much TV. I tend to play games, so it's probably more like the games I play and stuff like that, rather than actual TV. And I'd say, like, again, if you want to geek out, like Nintendo or League of Legends and that side of it, that's where I sit.
Cool. Dave?
Yeah, I feel like this is like I find it should be an easy one to answer, shouldn't it? It's because I spend so much of my time, like my spare time is like spent often, and my girlfriend kind of hates it because she does want to watch like new series or whatever. And
I think that those 3 questions are quite interchangeable now, right? Because podcasts you can watch. Some I prefer to watch, some I prefer just to listen to.
Yeah.
And then books, like you, I do audio books and I do reading books. So I think they are interchangeable.
100%, yeah. So I mean, just like legitimately, what do I watch? I'm a big one for YouTube, to be honest. So it's where, and sort of almost taking it back to how I like innovate, to be vague, and push, always sort of creating and new ideas. I'm always watching sort of different YouTube, and one of the things that I will often it's quite random, but I don't really game. Like, I like the idea of gaming, I just don't necessarily have the time to do it. I often spend that time creating or playing around with music or whatever. But I watch a lot of gamers. Like you've got like the Linus Tech Tips, which are kind of like that's like the big YouTube channel for like gamers who want to know how to like, you know, evolve their custom PC setups, and they want to know about the new graphics card or CPU. And I literally watch these things quite obsessively because I'm thinking about how can I get more gains from my PC. And but it's a fun thing. It's like a hobby, like
Yeah.
But outside of that, sort of like obsessing with that, I tap into some of the people who are like Minda Tracy and Leila Garani, who are sort of like Excel spreadsheet gurus, who I sometimes watch a bit of that for fun. Like big into F1, so I need to go and check out the F1 movie, and I'll always watch that like when it's on, like lead up to the weekend. So like now even I would go check in on like what's happened at.
Is it Monaco this weekend?
I think it's Silverstone.
Oh, is it?
I think it might be this weekend or next. I think it's this weekend. But yeah, really into that. My cousin karted from a young age, so I was very into that whole scene from quite early on, and I just loved the whole, operating at the cutting edge. I guess that's quite a theme for me. Like just at all levels, the skill level, the engineering level, everything is just, and also now obviously from a sort of like a show perspective, like it's fun to watch, and the way the coverage is incredible. So yeah, watch that. Listen to, I do listen to a lot of Dario CEO, but and what kind of things all sorts really. I take quite an interest in kind of the nutrition health side, so I do listen to quite a lot of podcasts around sort of nutrition and health. That comes a little bit from my background after training, where I struggled with my health a little bit, and then went on to be really into yoga, and I trained as a yoga teacher and got into nutrition and that side of things. Also because I'm a sensitive individual, like I've always struggled with, sort of bad skin and stuff like that from an early age, so I've always been into that side of things. And so yeah, I guess I need to lighten up a little bit, and but that's just my world. I find that the joy and the fun in different things, that's creativity, like using these different tips and knowledge, and then I have my play in different ways, maybe.
Cool.
And then there's another one. What am I listening to? What am I watching? What am I reading? To be honest, nothing, because I've always been a bit like I've always struggled, because people have asked me this before, and I've come up with some random answer and I'm reading this book. I'm like, honestly, nothing. So I don't read, not really. And I've for a long time kind of struggled with that, and sort of felt like I should be reading, like, and I forced it, and like, and I feel like, I pretend that I read this book, or like, I read Shoe Dog and that was great, and I actually listened to it, didn't read it, and now I just own it. I'm like, that's just not a form of.
Yeah, it's not for you.
And maybe me saying this as well, like, it's just for anyone who's like doesn't want to read. Like,
have you tried Blinkist, that thing that does like the synopsis?
Yeah, but
I tried that.
I've tried it, but I feel for me as someone who probably is undiagnosed but a little bit ADHD, maybe significantly. I don't know. It's just a lot for me. It's like a lot of stuff going on very, very quickly. And it's not for. I am a reader, and that's not for me. But I'm just wondering if that's like a gateway. No. So I do audio. I do listen to audiobooks.
Oh well, that's the same thing.
Similar
right?
sort of thing, yeah. But podcasts probably more so now. So yeah, still probably my go-to is the Diary of the CEO. I don't necessarily love how it's become a lot more clickbaity. I guess maybe on that note, if we're talking about like podcasts, other things I like high performance podcast is good as well.
Yeah.
I like that one. And Scott Galloway, I quite like him as a podcaster as well. I love
Scott Galloway.
Yeah, so I kind of tap into his a little bit as well. I think he's just no BS, just says it like it is, the hard things, the truth. So yeah, it's me.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for your time, chaps. It's been really entertaining, and we'll have this up on social soon. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. Bye.